Okay, good evening. Welcome to the public lecture this evening organized by the Institute for Mathematical Sciences. My name is Chong Chitat. I'm the director of the Institute. And before we start, I'd like to say that this public lecture series is funded by the generous sponsorship of the Ngong Beng Memorial Fund that's donated to the Institute for Mathematical Sciences, and we're grateful for this generosity of the donors. And this evening's speaker is Professor Fuhito Kojima from Stanford University. Professor Kojima graduated from University of Tokyo and received his PhD from Harvard, and then has been at Stanford ever since. He's currently the director of the Stanford Institute for Theoretical Physics. And Kojima, despite his youth, has won many awards. He was awarded Sloan Fellowship, and then he received this Economic Theory Fellowship. He was an invited speaker to the World Congress of Econometric Society, and he was the inaugural winner, actually, of the Kenichi Miyazawa Award in 2010. Yeah, and so we are very happy that he's accepted our invitation this evening to give a public lecture. The title is Introduction to Market Design. Please welcome Professor Kojima.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you very much for coming to the talk. Right, so I'm Fuhito Kojima, so I'm an economist. So today I will talk about economic theory of matching and its application to market design. So before I begin, however, so this is supposed to be a sort of general audience, public lecture. So I wonder how many of you have heard of the matching theory? Would you mind raising your hand? Okay, I see some of you raising your hand. Yeah, some of our colleagues came. All right. How about the? How many of you have taken a class in economics before? Okay, good. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so that's kind of good to know. Okay, great. So let me talk. So if you have not raised hands, no worries. I don't assume any prior knowledge. So let me talk about what matching theory is, and I will go into some detail of the theory. Okay, so we will do some math, but before that, let me give an overview. All right. In case you are interested, there's a pretty nice general interest book. And I will say something basically stealing from this book. Okay. All right. So so let me talk about what I am interested in generally, and so I'm an economist, and economists, study markets, right? So what are the markets? So if you have taken some class in economics before, I would guess that you have heard of story of supply and demand. So this is the supply and demand, right? So you have people who are potentially supplying the goods. So this is the quantity, this is the price. For each price, there are a bunch of people who are willing to sell some goods. So this is a supply curve. And then there's a demand on the other hand. So things like consumers trying to buy some goods, and depending on the prices, the supply might be bigger than demand when the price is too high. When the price of the good is very low, then there may be more demand because the good is cheap, but there are not enough suppliers because it's so cheap that they don't want to produce the good. And then story is that, well, there should be some point where the price is exactly right that supply meets demand. All right, and then people call it as the economists typically say that this is what's going to happen in the real market and so on. So this is a very simplified story that many economists have sort of theorized about and claims to happen in the real world. So this is a kind of very well studied market and considered to be well suited to study the so-called commodity markets, right? So goods that are very common goods like books and pencils and so on. So the price seems to be doing a pretty nice job matching demand and supply. So if you go to the store, you will be able to find pens and books sold on the shelves, and you can, as long as you are willing to pay the money, the price, then you can get them good. So that's a miracle of markets, so to speak. But let me, however, say that not all markets work like this. Think of matching markets, okay? Matching markets, so let's say dating, okay? So this is taken from some dating websites. So, when you think of this as a market where, you should sort of like facilitate a meeting between, let's say, men and women, just to say here. This is a market in which you might expect something else is going on other than supply and demand and the prices, right? So you don't bid for like meeting, let's say, a woman of your choice, a man. That's true for all women seeking a potential date, a man. Well, so this is an example in which the price. This story of supply and demand guided by price may not be working well. In particular, so there are a couple of differences. One big difference here is that, so the goods are very heterogeneous. So unlike like things like pens, pencils, pens, and books and notebooks and so on, they are very like. People have a very finely grained preferences over the others, over the mates. So you really care about the identity of who you are matched to. So you cannot expect that there are many copies of like identical women to be supplied and so on. So this story doesn't seem to fit very well in the dating market. Another important thing is that in the matching market, you cannot just choose to match with your mate, right? Just by paying money. Rather, you should be chosen by the other side, right? So you cannot just choose, you should be chosen. So this bilateral, right? So the mutual relationship is another interesting feature. And that also complicates the matter because you cannot just use, typically, you may not be able to just find a price in which like I can pay my potential date to date me and so on. If you think that this is a little bit frivolous example, it turns out that this kind of matching market where there are a lot of specific characteristics, heterogeneity of preferences, and the price don't seem to be working with miracles are pretty prevalent. So there are two other examples. Okay, so imagine that you are in the university market, college admission. So if you are currently in the US or you have graduated from the US before, well, I'm sure that you have not just paid tuition and studied here. Rather, you should be admitted by the US, right? So you cannot just US just doesn't raise the prices so that exactly right number of people will just be willing to be in US. Rather, there are a lot of applicants who would like to be matched with NUS, but the price don't really adjust to equate the demand and supply of seats. Rather, the NUS actually has some other ways, like grades of the exam and so on, to select who will be admitted. The same is true for labor markets. So if you like to work for Google, you can just show up at in Google campus and say, hey, I'm here, I'd like to work for you. You can do it, you should be hired by Google. Okay, right. So it turns out that these are the markets in which, importantly, the price doesn't seem to be all the miracles. So you might need to think of some theory to study this kind of markets. All right, so this is not a traditional markets that the economists used to work a lot on. And and the price don't necessarily play a big role. So in that kind of market, so the problem is much more difficult. So if you are really trying to make sure that this market or institutions work well, it turns out that a lot of organizers of these markets need to think carefully about what kind of institution to put, right? The rule of who can apply to whom and in what timing and so on. So in the case of college admission, for example, different countries do very different things. So in places like United States, the allocation, the college admissions are done pretty much in a decentralized manner. So you apply to individual colleges and so on. On the other side, or on the other extreme, there are a bunch of European countries, and Turkey is a very well-studied examples, where you are actually asked to submit a list of schools that you would like to go to, and there's an actual specific algorithm used by the organizers of the central authority in the government, basically deciding which student will be sent to which school and so on. So there are a wide range of the design issues, and once again, we cannot just imagine that expect that tuition will adjust automatically to make everybody happy, unlike the commodity market. So that kind of leads to the issue of how to design this market. All right. So this is where the market design component of this topic is about. So the matching market is more complicated than traditional markets, and hence we would like to actually think carefully about the market design issues. Right. So I already mentioned the examples where this kind of consideration becomes important. In the labor markets, I already mentioned, this matching issue turns out to be especially crucial in some regulated markets, such as the medical residency markets. So this is a market in which the doctors who just graduate from medical schools need to find a job as a resident or intern, depending on how you call it. This is a practice in which that new doctors will work under the supervision of senior doctors. So this is partly a labor market, but also oftentimes considered to be part of medical education. And as such, oftentimes it turns out that there are a lot of regulations and the government subsidy and so on. And this market turns out to have a feature that oftentimes the wage of new doctors are pretty homogeneous. So it doesn't seem to be adjusting well to equate supply and demand, unlike the commodity market. It turns out that this is a particularly nice example, as we will see. So NRMP stands for National Resident Matching Program. So this is a particular algorithm-based matching system for doctors and residents and residency programs in the United States. So I will talk a bit more about this. Okay. And school admission, college admission. So this is another example I mentioned. It turns out that there are even more other interesting examples. So organ transplantation is another good example. So this is a quote-unquote market where, let's say, you are a patient for kidney disease, you need a kidney to be transplanted. Well, on the other side of the quote-unquote market, there are organ donors. But then you cannot equate supply and demand in this market because, well, organ trade is usually, illegal in almost all countries in the world, with the exception of Iran. As it turns out, Iran is a very interesting example in which actually organ trade is allowed, but all other countries is not allowed. So this is interestingly, so there's a supply of organs, demand for organs, but there's no price to adjust the equation to supply and demand. So there's an interesting issue of how to decide the matching system for all these organs Okay, so these are the kind of examples we'd like to see today. All right. So the questions again. So these are the markets in which you do not expect the prices, money to do the miracles. So what kind of good outcome can be achieved if you do the careful design of the markets? That's the first question. But in order to answer this, we need to firstly decide what do we mean by even the word work well, the market working well. So we should formalize the idea. Okay. So here the theory part, matching theory part comes in. All right. So I will try to cover these things today. Okay. Any questions so far? Please feel very free to interrupt. Okay. All right. All right. So if you do not have questions, let me actually go into the meat of the content of this theory. All right. So let me talk about the what came to be kind of to become standard sort of bread and butter in this matching theory. So particularly based on these two academic papers, for these people are the authors. Okay. All right. So let me use the wording of, so think of a matching between doctors and hospitals. So I already mentioned that this turns out to be a very nice real life examples later on. So imagine that on one side of the market, there are new doctors who are just about to graduate from medical schools. And on the other side, there are hospitals who might be interested in hiring doctors. Okay. So naturally, so this is a math model, okay, if you wish. We assume that the people have preferences over the other side of the market, all right? So doctors have a clear ranking over different hospital programs. So the first choice may be NUS, the medical center, which is the JRMP area. Second choice may be somewhere in the US. So we have these preferences. Hospitals also have preferences over the doctors. Okay, so clearly it's useful for the hospital residency programs if they can hire good doctors. Okay, all right. Then we are interested in the object called matching. Okay, so I have been using this word a lot of times. A little bit carefully, matching is simply a certain function which specifies, which doctor is matched to which, assigned to which hospitals and so on. All right. Nothing is like super complicated here. All right. So this is the matching environment that I'm interested in. All right. So I promised you to tell you about what people consider to be a good outcome, okay, or what we mean by making sure the market work well. So I need to formalize this idea. So before explaining how we reached this the notion people agreed upon, let me actually explain the notion. So the criterion that people ended up agreeing on to be good is called the stability. Okay, so this is a property, certain mathematical property of a matching. All right, so we say that a matching is stable if the following is true. Okay, so we say that a matching is stable if there is no pair called the blocking pairs. Okay, so what is a blocking pair? That is a pair of a doctor and a hospital with the property that this doctor likes the hospital rather than the hospital that this matching specifies that you need to match this, right? So again, so we are fixing the matching. So think of a market designers or the market organizers tell you which hospital you need to work for. And then I say that this matching has a blocking pair if the doctor doesn't really like this outcome that he or she was told to accept. Rather, he would rather work for another hospital. And the same is true for the hospital as well, i.e. the hospital was told to accept this number of doctors, but the hospital also likes to be matched with this doctor rather than the accepting the outcome suggested by the market organizer. Okay. In other words, this is a situation in which the suggested solution by the market organizers are bad in the sense that there is a pair of a doctor and a hospital who are both unsatisfied with the outcome and also capable of basically ignoring the suggested match. Right? So in other words, if we have a situation in which the produced suggested match by the market organizers admits such a broken pair, then that kind of matching should not be expected to be sustained because there are people who are both interested in and capable of ignoring the match. Okay. So we would like to produce a matching that does not have such broken pair. So interpretations in the real life. So this definition is just a mathematical property, but the interpretations once again is matching that is stable would encourage participation because having no pair of this kind, broken pair, means that there are no unhappy participants who can also be able to ignore the match. So this kind of encourages participation and prevents loopholes. All right, everybody has an incentive to follow the suggestions, recommendation. Okay, we can also think of it as a fairness. Okay, as a normative property. Okay, all right. So this is a desirable property that as a designer or organizer of all the marketplaces, we would like to find such a match. Okay. So the question is, how can we find a stable match? Well, does it even exist? Well, it's even unclear. Okay. So such a matching that nobody is really unhappy sounds like a little bit too good to be true, right? I mean, it's not clear you can do it. It turns out that there's an algorithm to find it. So here is the part that is kind of interesting. So imagine that actually you can use a computer and market organizers can ask people to submit preferences. Okay, so tell me what hospital is your first choice and what is your second choice and so on. So let's collect that kind of data and ask the same question to the hospitals. By the way, so this is exactly how some marketplaces are organized today actually. So the medical match example that I mentioned in the United States, literally they ask participants to submit preferences to the organizers actually, and that has been done from 1950s. Okay, so imagine that we ask all this information, and then the computer processes this preference information to find a final match. And the algorithm is called the Deferred Acceptance Algorithm, or DA for short. The name, why it's called the Deferred Acceptance will become clear. So here is a entire description, formal description of the algorithm that are used in these markets. So there are a bunch of steps. In step 1, doctors apply to their first choice hospitals. Well, of course, doctors do not in real time apply. Rather, like I said, information of preferences are already in computers. So the computer will reads the first choices of all the doctors, and then a computer will make the application on doctor's behalf, right? Then, in any case, now given the applications, each hospital tentatively holds the best ranking doctors up to their capacities, and then reject all other doctors. Okay, so that's the step 1. So it looks a little bit like the real labor market, right? So the people apply, and then among them, the employer will just decide who to accept. So up to this point, there's no, basically just automated version of the future labor market, I guess. What becomes more interesting is after the step 2 and so on. So what happens to the doctors who are rejected in the first step according to this step of the algorithm? These doctors apply to their next choices, okay? And here's what is interesting. Now, from the receiving side of the market, i.e. the hospitals, they are faced potentially with two kinds of applicants. One of the kinds of applicants are those who are applying in this step, new applicants, but also they may have already accepted tentatively some doctors from the last step. Okay, so there are two kinds of applicants. What does the algorithm say about how to treat these kind of applicants? The answer is that the hospitals don't distinguish new applicants and the existing applicants kept from last step and just re-optimize, i.e. they now look at the entire pool of applicants and then choose the best doctors and reject everybody else. Okay, so and in particular, this means even if you as a doctor was accepted, quote unquote, in the step 1 from your dream hospital, you could be rejected in the second step when more preferred doctors apply to the same hospital. Okay, and then that could happen, and what happened to the rejected doctors in step 2? They go to step 3, they apply to the next choices, and then the same steps are repeated over and over and over again. And the algorithm will stop in some time, okay, when no more application is being made. And at that point, all the tentative acceptance becomes finalized, and that's going to be the outcome of this algorithm. So the name deferred acceptance comes from this particular feature, i.e. that applications are always tentative until or deferred until the end of the algorithm. Okay? So this is not probably not a very intuitive algorithm for many of you, probably, because you would think that the natural algorithm may be, at each step of the algorithm, you just accept best applicants and then finalize that match, and then for the remaining doctors, it is the same. And this is sometimes referred to as immediate acceptance. So immediate acceptance is probably more natural or intuitive, but it turns out that this deferred acceptance algorithm is very interesting because it turns out that this algorithm always finds a stable match. Okay, remember, stable match is a matching that such that no pair of a doctor and hospital exists who are both unhappy and capable of using loopholes. And the default outcome of the default acceptance algorithm turns out to always find a stable match. Actually, I can give a mathematical proof of this fact. Actually, why? How do we do it? Imagine that you are a doctor and you are matched with your third choice, for example, and you would rather be matched with another hospital. So imagine that you like to propose to actually deviate from the outcome. So what happened to this hospital that you propose to now? Well, by the description of the algorithm, the very fact that you are not matched with your first choice means that you are rejected at some point of the step at some step of the algorithm, because the algorithm is specified that you are applying from the top school, most preferred hospital. And then the deferred acceptance algorithm also tells you that the only reason that you are not matched to this best hospital is that you are rejected at some point of time. Not only that, you are rejected precisely because there is somebody else who have applied to the same hospital. That's the only way, according to this description of the algorithm, that this is the only way that you are not matched with your first choice. Okay. In other words, the algorithm description immediately tells you that if you are not matched with your preferred choice, that's precisely because somebody more preferred by the hospital has applied to that hospital. Okay. So this is basically end of the proof of this fact that the deferred acceptance algorithm in fact finds a stable match. So this proof has been done by this very nice paper by Guérin and Shapley, so 1962. So this is great. So this is a cool theory, very simple and so on. But the question is, does it matter? Well, it turns out that it matters quite a lot. There are a lot of real-life examples in which, indeed, stability and this algorithm plays a role. Let me mention this medical match in the United States. So like I already said, the United States medical match NRMP use this algorithm-based marketplaces, like matching mechanism, at least in the 1950s. The history is very interesting here because it turns out that the algorithm that this medical match adopted in around the year 1950 was indeed the same as the deferred acceptance algorithm. All right. Even more interesting, like I said, medical match adopted this algorithm in around 1950. And that's actually at least 10 years before the publication of this very first paper. So actually, interestingly, they basically found this out on their own by without the mathematicians, actually the mathematicians/economists, without consulting these academics, they actually figured out by trial and error. So there's a sort of like feeling, at least, that it appears that the theoretically, appealing property of stability. So this may sound like just a sort of abstract concept. It turns out that this seems to be the guiding principle, so to speak, of these people who are doing this in practice, right? Even more interesting is actually that, let me talk a bit more about history. So the NRMP was trying to establish this algorithm-based matching mechanism. The first mechanism that they have considered was in around the 1950 was indeed closer to what I just mentioned as an immediate acceptance algorithm, actually. Like I said, immediate acceptance algorithm is like DA, but in each step, the outcome is finalized. So that sounds like a more natural way to do it, right? Indeed, that was closer to what they proposed first. But then students, the group of students who actually read this basically the proposal, and they thought this is a very terrible idea. Among other things, that immediate acceptance algorithm could actually make an outcome that is not stable. So they went back and forth and then figured out that actually this deferred acceptance algorithm was a solution. So it appears that yes.
Can I ask you something? So what kind of restrictions do you have in place to make sure that this algorithm works? Imagine all doctors like hospital A and that's it. So we can stop after step 1.
Okay, yeah, okay, so great questions. I actually kind of like cheated a little bit because I allow for some doctors to be unmatched actually. In case that you only like one hospital and then nothing else, then the outcome is that this doctor could be rejected from their first choice and remain unmatched. And we still call it a stable match. In the sense that this unmatched doctor maybe not to be super happy, but to the extent that he or she can still not block with the first choice hospital. Right.
So you say there are no restrictions regarding
yeah, actually, right. So
scores or whatever. I mean.
Yeah, actually, right. So exactly. So I do not need a restriction whatsoever, including whether how many doctors find the outside option to be better than some hospitals. Oh, actually, I cheated a little bit actually because I'm.
And he likes only hospital B.
Yeah,
so that's it, you see. So I mean,
actually, right.
If hospital A doesn't like him or her, then you don't have a match, so obviously it doesn't work.
Right. So one thing I have actually excluded without actually saying it explicitly is that imagine that you like only hospital A, and the second choice for you is not working, and then being in hospital B is even worse than not working at all. In such a case, the matching, there could be a matching in which you are forced to match with hospital B, and obviously that's not a good matching. And so I will. So I actually didn't write it explicitly. So if you consider in this case it to be so usually people call it the so we could basically put this kind of thing into the model by interpreting the outside option to be a hospital with unlimited capacity. So then a matching in which you are forced to be matched with hospital B is unstable in the sense that you can block with quote-unquote hospital, which is the outside option. And then with that, then this algorithm guarantees that the worst thing that might happen to you is always matched with the outside option itself. So that's the way to correct this. I wonder if that's the answer to the question. Okay, good. All right. So this happy thing that okay, so we are people and mathematicians sort of like coincide about what to do about these markets. So it's it'll be a bit crazy to say that well, this 1 point, however, 1 point data tells everything about the real market. It turns out that there are more observations. So UK medical match is one of the interesting markets that told interesting stories. So UK medical match was like a US medical match. So they introduced the algorithm-based marketplace in about by 1960s. So apparently they have heard about the US experience in the 1950s. Interestingly, however, in the UK, around that time, different regions of the countries organized the medical match separately from each other. Okay, there are about I think around the time 20-something different regions, and the different regions copied part of the US experience. Some regions copied the deferred acceptance correctly. Some others did not correctly copy their system. In particular, some regions use DA, some other regions use the immediate acceptance algorithm. And the latter kind of regions, it turns out to be suffer from a lot of problems, and most of them actually quickly abandon their system. So that's what does it tell us? Well, it kind of tells us that, well, the detail of the algorithm actually matters, and using the stable matching mechanism seems to be correlated with the success of the marketplaces. Okay, so there are a bunch of other follow-up results of this kind. More recently, so people gradually began to think that, okay, so this carefully study, defining this match algorithm is kind of important. So now economists and computer scientists are more proactive these days. So especially after the beginning of this century, a lot of more markets are actually designing these markets with explicit consultation with economists and computer scientists. So UK medical match has gone through some reform, and computer scientists are helping them. JRMP, this is a Japanese medical match, so they did it explicitly, and bunch of districts school districts in the United States, New York City and Boston, so they have also introduced algorithms to match students to schools recently. 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, and they have collaborated with economists to find what kind of algorithm to use. So all of these markets are actually now using the deferred acceptance. All right, so I guess I sound like I'm advocating this particular algorithm. So there are some reasons that this algorithm is good, or stability of the algorithm is good. At least there's another good property. So remember, in the real world, the information about preferences should be asked to the participants, right? So the market organizers basically ask you to submit to you what hospitals you like, and so on. One important issue is whether the algorithm is set up in such a way that the people have incentive to tell the truth. Okay, in other words, can you expect people to give the actual information, true information? It turns out that there's a proof that this algorithm is what we call strategy proof, which is that telling the true preferences, submit the true preferences, and is actually guaranteed to give you the best possible outcome compared to any potentially dishonest reporting of preferences. Okay, so that is basically it is that there's no point in trying to game the system. Okay. Which again is not a very obvious fact, by the way, because I mentioned the immediate acceptance algorithm, right? Immediate acceptance algorithm, for example, is not strategy proof. Why? Well, if you submit your preferences in such a way that you list NOS as the first choice, chances are that the NOS is so competitive that I will be rejected. I'm applying to, I don't want to name any particular place. Second choice is Stanford, let's say. Okay, so Stanford is a pretty good school too. So by the time you are applying to Stanford as a second choice, chances are that there are enough people who apply to Stanford in the first step, so all the seats are gone. Okay, so immediate acceptance is not strategy proof because in that case you might have had a better chance getting into Stanford by not listing the NOS as a first choice, right? It turns out that DA actually has a very interesting property. So in DA, if you did not get into the NOS, then in the second step you apply to Stanford. You are not discriminated against when you apply to Stanford as a second choice because the algorithm is such that, again, you will be considered together with all people who are accepted tentatively in the first choice. So actually, you are not disadvantaged by telling the truth. All right, so that's great. There's a little bit complication, however. It turns out that from the receiving, the other side of the market, it's not strategy proof. So in the doctor-hospital context, it turns out that the hospitals can potentially profit by being dishonest, actually. And this matters sometimes. Okay? There's some actually issue around this in the medical market in the 1990s, actually. So basically, among the things, people are worried that maybe it's not a fair mechanism, fair system, because some dishonest people may be gaining, and so on. Fortunately, it turns out that there's a sense in which it's not easy to do so, however. So there's a certain statement such that in the large enough market where there are a lot of participants, the probability of successful manipulation is small. Small, especially in the sense that asymptotically, as the market size becomes larger and larger, then the probability goes to zero. All right. So here's just a little data that I can show. So this is coming from the data where Ross and Pranson studies the medical market in the United States. In their data that they obtained from JRMP, there are about 3,000 to 4,000 hospital programs, and among them, there are only the number of hospitals who could have submitted some other preferences, and the benefit is just 10 to 20. So that's a very small number. All right. Okay. So I have still 15 minutes, so I'd like to talk a little bit more about the more recent topics. But if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Yes?
How do you manipulate as on the receiving end? How do hospitals manipulate?
Yes. So the intention is that if you pretend, let's say I'm a hospital director and I think you are a very good candidate, but not the best choice. Sorry about it. So I can strategically say that I don't like you. Then what happens in the algorithm is that you will apply to some other stuff. But then that sort of it means that there will be more competition in the other hospital because you are applying to your second choice now. Then that can push some other doctors out of this hospital B. Then there's a chance that this newly kicked out the doctor will apply to my place, and if my hospital and my hospital might like this new doctor. So roughly speaking, by pretending to be more picky, then that can cause the competition among the applicants, and that could actually indirectly benefit. So that's the intuition. But then that's a very sort of like indirect effect, right? So it turns out that in the large market, this is very hard to do. Okay. All right. So good. So let me talk a bit about more recent advance and both theory and applications. So let me tell you about a story about couples. Okay. What about this? Great. So in the medical match I have been talking about, all doctors were singles. Yes. In the real world, there are lots of married couples who are trying to find joint positions. Okay. So in the medical match, so when the medical match started these algorithms in 1950, this was not a problem because essentially all doctors were men around the time. By the 1970s, however, there are a significant number of female doctors. Okay, I think the number is something like 20% by that time. And then one of the interesting features is that doctors marry each other quite a lot, and so they need to find two positions, in the same city or close to each other because usually couples like to spend time together. And this caused a problem actually. So this is a typical preference or ranking of a couple. So couple, let me call it the couple by a husband H and wife W. So their first choice is likely to be two positions in city one. So let's say two places in Singapore is good. Maybe let me use a US example. So maybe the first choice may be two hospitals in Stanford area. The second choice may be two hospitals in Boston area. The third choice may be two positions in Chicago. But the US is a geographically big country, right? So it's quite possible that they would not want to even consider two positions where the husband works in Boston and the other person, the wife works in Chicago. Okay, you need to travel a lot to meet each other. So this kind of preferences are very common, and the number of couples are quite big too. In the medical match, the number is something between 5% or 10%. So they are actually 5 and 10% of doctors are married the serious relationship, and in the psychology market which we studied, the number is something between 1 and 2%. So they are not gigantic number, but not too big to ignore. So here's a question. Okay, so the algorithm that I told you does not take into account the couple's existence. It's and it's indeed how initially the medical match try to force people actually to apply as a single. Okay, if you're a couple, okay, so you just told you apply separately. And it's easy to see that this is not a good mechanism. Why? Well, imagine that you and your partner would like to find a position. You submit the ranking separately. Then there's nothing in the algorithm try to accommodate, put you close by to each other. So chances are that you will be matched in one east coast of the US, and the other your partner will be in the middle of nowhere in the west coast in the Midwest. All right. So this is that turned out to do very poorly on creating couples. And naturally, so this was a problem, and a lot of complaints came from couples. So they thought about some new design, right? So they did a following. Something a bit weird too from in the 21st century. So they first, if you are a couple, you need to go to the dean of the medical school first and get certified by the dean that you are couples. Okay, so that's the first step. After that, you are asked to specify one of the members of the couple to be the quote-unquote leading member. Around the time it was usually a man. And then the algorithm is the following. Firstly, run the deferred acceptance algorithm where only the leading member is applying to places, and then find a stable match. After that, they add the non-leading member of the couple, but then erase every single position from her list, which is not close enough to what he was already matched to. Okay, so that will at least guarantee that the two positions that the couple that will get are not too far away. But it's easy to think of this as doesn't seem like a particularly good algorithm, among other things. Firstly, it sounds pretty sexist. Secondly, well, the non-leading members options are quite limited, right? So apparently this didn't quite help. So by the 90s it didn't work. So didn't work in the sense by the year around 1970s, the participation rate to this system dropped quite a lot, especially among couples. So there's a huge drop of the participants, and many people try to find a job outside of this system, and people are worried about it. So the market design kind of evolved over time to cope with the problem. All right. And then the organizers are worried about this enough, so now they do the following. And this is roughly what is going on today in these medical match and other places. Now the organizers actually allows couples to firstly, register as couples without the approval. Secondly, they literally allow the couples to submit the preferences that are on the pair of positions. Okay, remember that that was the whole point. So the couples have preferences over pairs of positions. Okay, and then the idea is why don't you just ask? Okay, submit the rank order list or the pairs of the positions. So that's how it is done in medical match and APIC, the psychology market and so on. And so it turns out that this algorithm is not guaranteed to find a stable match. Actually, but then there's a results in the field saying that with couples trying to find a job jointly, it's possible that the stable matching just does not exist. Actually, so however, interestingly, it turns out that there are results saying that with high probability, this algorithm actually finds a stable match, at least in the large markets. All right. So these are again looking a bit like a trial and error by the market organizers, especially given the new kind of features of the market that did not exist in the beginning of the marketplaces. So they did a lot of trial and error and so on, but then and actually when the current design is actually with a consultation of Avi Roth, so economists. So there seems to be something useful learned from economists or academics about who knows theory about it. This problem, but also it's quite useful to look at actually how the marketplace actually evolve. Great. So let me actually spend the last 5 minutes to talk a bit about Japan. So I'm originally from Japan, so this gives some interesting case study. All right. So Japan adopted the DA in 2003 for medical match, but then it didn't go as smoothly as in the United States. So the complaint that some people made in this market is that, well, too many doctors are placed in Tokyo, okay, big metropolitan areas, and there is basically imbalance of doctors in geographically. So the government decided that this is indeed a problem, so they introduced a constraint, which I call regional cap. So this is a constraint that makes the basically of the form that in each region of the country there's a maximum number of doctors who can be placed. Okay. So this gives some numbers, a sense of number. So it, let me not read it, but it's a quite substantial restriction. Now that poses a new question. Okay, now the original DA algorithm did not have this common restriction about the number of doctors in each region, so the algorithm is not well defined. So you need to modify the algorithm somehow. So the Japan's government officials thought about it. They had a solution, which is let's pretend that it's almost like the deferred acceptance, so that's a good mechanism. But then let's just impose a constraint. So now we have upper bound constraints on the number of doctors who can be placed in Tokyo. So how do we guarantee that this is honored? Well, let's replace in the algorithm, let's replace the capacity of the hospital by what I call artificial capacity. Artificial capacity is simply a number at each hospital that is smaller than the hospital's actual capacity. And it's so small that the total number, the sum of the numbers of these artificial capacity does not exceed the regional cap. All right. So that sounds sensible. So now this artificial capacity guarantees that the outcome always is feasible, i.e., the regional cap constraint is honored, and the algorithm looked pretty innocuous. So it's just replaced. Basically, it's reduced the supply of the seats, and it looks close enough to the deferred acceptance. So good properties of the DA should go through, although it turns out that it does not go through. So actually, the good property of the DA is actually lost by this change. So let me actually not spend too much time with examples, but it turns out that this algorithm will have the unfortunate property that the outcome can be inefficient and unstable. So, okay, let me actually give an example. So there are 10 doctors and 2 hospitals, and the regional cap is 10. So this is a funny example in which the regional cap regulation should not do anything because there are only 10 doctors and the regional cap is 10. So this should not be a binding constraint. But then in the Japanese medical this algorithm, this constraint is honored by imposing the artificial capacity constraint in each hospital. So let's specify the 10 seats in each hospital, but the regulation says that okay, you should artificially limit the number of supply to 5. But this is a little bit bad idea, because let's imagine that 7 doctors like hospital B and 3 doctors like A. Then what happens is that because of this artificial capacity, the doctors are rejected. There are 7 applicants, and the artificial capacity says 5 can be accepted, so they cannot be matched with hospital B. And this happens despite the fact that the actual constraint is only on the total number of doctors in the region, but then essentially the algorithm actually imposes unnecessarily strong constraints, restrictions, so there's added inefficiency. So in my work, we propose a new mechanism which corrects this kind of inefficiency. So let me not go through this example. So currently we basically did some simulation about what can be what kind of improvement we can make in the real data. So we couldn't actually get the data, real data, because they are not happy to share with us. But then just quickly, so so this is a Japanese medical match mechanism, and this is our proposal. If you change the algorithms from Japanese mechanism into our proposal, you can actually reduce the number of unmatched people quite a lot. So in this simulation, we have about 8,300 doctors, and among them, about 1,400 people are unmatched in the Japanese mechanism. But by changing the algorithm a little bit, you can actually reduce this number into about 1,000. So 400 reduction of 400 people. So that's quite substantial. Okay, so I'm hoping that basically there's some as academic, we like to sort of think about the problem by theory and then show that that can be actually substantial in the real world. Okay. All right. So actually, I'm out of time. So let me not talk about even more things. But currently, I'm working on the allocation of the daycare seats in the kids like nursery schools. And there's also it turns out that these markets are oftentimes again regulated in prices. So heavily subsidized by the government. There are a lot of people who like to be matched with daycare. So there's a role that algorithm is playing. So we are comparing the different kind of data from some cities in Japan where we are comparing the existing mechanism and other mechanisms. All right, so let me not go into detail. If you are interested in this at all, I'm very happy to talk about it, well, after the end of the talk, which is now. Okay. All right, so what's the conclusion? The conclusion, so matching markets often work without money. Okay, so these are the algorithm-based marketplaces. So and then the matching theory can some theory can actually help organize these markets nicely. Okay, so we talk about medical match, a little bit about school choice, and daycare allocation, and so on. All right. So I would like to invite you to think about these markets and then potentially think of, okay, so one thing one ambition for me is after the talk, please tell me about what some markets that you are aware of and tell me what the problem is. So I'm very interested in knowing more about these markets and potentially study it. Okay, so I think let me stop.